Dr. Robotnick's Ring Racer. Oh, Dr. Robotnick's Ring Racer. I wanted to believe in the best for this game, but honestly, there's no way that this game would ever be considered good outside of someone who's either super casual and, just wants to play the game and have fun, that might be their first racing game. Or someone who's super competitive. Someone who loves tryharding, playing the game in this sort of way. I'm just going to get started with what I don't like. Because there's a lot in this game that I really fucking hate. For one, the way the game handles is just awful. To compare it to SRB2, its prequel. The prequel felt more streamlined to how a Mario Kart game would play, but for good reason. Mario Kart is a good game. It's a good standard to follow into the future. While with Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racer, it feels like it's trying to lean more towards the Riders type of gameplay. But it doesn't fully commit. Because the way the game handles right now is sort of like that mix, that right in between. And it feels really bad. Drifting, especially in higher difficulties, like Gear 3 or whatever it's called, it feels like you have no control over it. And, it would make sense, if you could, it would make sense to, have that control on so you can slow it down. But it really doesn't come into play very much. Even with actual, braking during drifting, that completely turns you to a halt. It doesn't allow you to, slow down a little bit so you can control your speed a bit more, like in SRB2 Kart or Mario Kart. Instead, it feels like you're basically just stopping, like Kirby Air Ride. As well as some of the mechanics in the game just don't feel good at all. There's a bunch of mechanics that are mechanically useless. There's no point to them. Like, here, take this for example. In the tutorial level, there's a section where it shows you, the blue sparks when you're going really fast that allows you to break barriers and things like that. It has no use. Really think about it here. In what situation would you ever need that where off-road doesn't directly make it easier to control where the player goes? Because its main purpose is to block off things until you have items, so you can use shoes through them and things like that. You know what else you can do that through? Fucking off-road. Off-road single-handedly invalidates this. And it's not like it's not in the game. Because if it wasn't in the game, it would at least make sense to have this in. But off-road still exists and is sometimes mandatory to go through. Why? Why have both when one easily does it better? And another thing. The way rings and the insta-shield attack, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm not calling it like a tail swipe or whatever it's called. Having it be so when you have no items, you get to use rings. Okay, I can understand that to an extent, having a fill-in item to make it feel like you're not just unable to do anything when you don't have an item, especially since how items work in this game makes it less common for you to get them, which is fucking stupid, by the way. I'll go over that later. The main thing is, with the way the game is formatted, you're going to basically be holding down the item button the entire race. And that really sucks, because at the same time, when your rings are empty, not only are you more vulnerable, for no reason, mind you, but you also are forced to use this stupid insta-shield attack that does nothing There is no use cases for it. I understand you're trying to be like Kirby Air Ride, where Kirby Air Ride you can spin the stick really fast, and that makes a little effect that allows you to just destroy enemies anyone near you when you don't have a copy ability. But in this game, you already have items. That move existed because copy abilities were like very uncommon. You get copy abilities, you use it, and then you lose it almost instantly. And so you have that spin attack to, at least give players a little bit of leverage against people with copy abilities. In SRB2, there's no point because you can just ram into them and it does the exact same thing. What's the point if it does the same thing as the spin attack? Because there's no point in it then. You just use the stupid ring sting or whatever it's called and just knock your opponents out the way. God. And it's not just that as well, but it doesn't even let you hop over gaps because, there's a little bit of a hop to it, which you think would be useful in small instances, like skipping over springs and things like that. But it's barely even enough height to do corner cuts if there's off-road in the first place. And even then, you don't want to be in a state where you can use that attack because then you can just get ring stinged and fucking die. Like, what's the point of the attack? There's a whole section in the tutorial about it. And it's useless. There's no point in it. As well as the way underwater drifting works is so dumb. Like, I understand that you wanted to have it so there was at least a little bit of control difference between underwater and on-land gameplay, but the point of the water in Mario Kart is that it gives you this anti-gravity. It makes you a bit lighter, a bit floatier. You get knocked around a bit easier. Sort of like the opposite of what anti-gravity is in Mario Kart 8. But in this game, you don't want to be underwater because it changes how you play the game completely. You think about the game in this whole new way. And I get that it's meant to have mechanical depth, You go underwater, completely different mechanically. But you could just make a character like that. You could have you'd have different types of carts. You could have done way more than just have it be inside drift underwater. And yet that's all you do. That's all you do for the mechanics of the game. And I think the worst part of the game, this is moving on to a new section now. I'm not going to talk about controls anymore because I think I've already gotten angry enough at controls. Worst part of the game? By far, the items. The items are bullshit and a half. The items really make you question what the devs were thinking. The mine. Completely fine. There's some new items that are fine. The banana is a little less readable because it still has the actual end to it. You could have just made it the normal banana item and it would have been a lot more readable considering the silhouette. But as well as that, you have dog shit items that make it way harder to play if you're in 4th or 5th place, like the Hydruro. They changed it from SRB2 Kart to this game. Previously, it was just the Boo item from Mario Kart. Pretty simple, and it works well for what it does. But in this game, they turned it into a banana-like trap, where if someone runs into it, you steal their item. On paper, fine. But it also reduces your chance of getting to go off-road. Because it makes the other player invisible, not you. The other player. That's an advantage towards another player. If you don't have an item, just go for it at that point because you're not losing anything. As well as there's some other things that really aren't useful at all. The Marble Garden Zone drill is one of the worst designed items I've seen in a karting game. So basically, the way it works for people who haven't played the game, good on you, is that you're able to basically, okay. It allows you to go to new speeds, travel through those barrier gates I was talking about before, and you can shoot it out as well. And it sends people into a tumble, which we'll get to later. We'll get to that later. Don't worry, we're getting to that. And you are able to instantly redirect just by pressing the drift button and then just looking in a new direction. Sort of like Kirby Air Ride, like I was talking about before. You can totally see that inspiration in there. But the tracks are never designed around it, so you either end up running into a wall with no control over your actual direction, or ends up being too slow to be an actual item worth using. At that point, you just shoot it out. And half the time, because this is a weird thing, this is the only item that does this, mind you, it shoots where you move your control stick. So if you, let's say you're about to drift, so you turn right, but you also want to fire it out. You're going to fire it out to the right and end up heading yourself into tumble, and you're not going to be able to do anything. As well as things like Mini. Mini in SRP2 Kart was annoying for a reason. It hit all players without any remorse. So, it's fine, right? Like, it's just lightning. In this game, they turned it into lasers. Unavoidable lasers, mind you. I feel like they did that in the guise to be more fair to the player, but it really gives them less agency, because you're going to get hit by them anyway. They move so fast, and the residual still gives you that effect as well. And then the problem with that is the mini player, the person who uses the item, also gets grow on top of that. They get a laser that gives them grow. So the shrink, all it does is just make you smaller and have a little bit less acceleration for a shorter amount of time. Sure, you'll get hit multiple times by the lasers, but they never really do anything to hurt you. They're unavoidable, but they're useless. So what's the point of having it? What's the point of having the mini item be changed when it's basically not giving you any more agency than you already previously had? I want to answer this, seriously. If you're listening to this, I want a serious explanation as to why this happens. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? I have a few items I wanted to go over. Oh, yeah. Unlock system. Dumb as fuck. I think we can all agree on that. Not only does it lock things like online and add-ons behind certain goals, which, mind you, not the worst idea. Maybe have them both behind the first Grand Prix, and that would work. But, or like, have them behind the tutorial. Let's say you have to complete the tutorial to play with mods, things like that, just so you can get a little bit of a handle, which we'll get to later. That tutorial's bullshit. This audio file, or video if I decide to turn it into that, will most likely be shorter than the actual tutorial itself. The tutorial itself runs for over 30 minutes because the gameplay mechanics are explained so poorly and in such an awkward fashion that no one would ever understand what the mechanics are. The only reason I understand is because I decided to go back and play again, which, not a good decision. But the unlock system also locks characters and colors behind it, which on paper isn't really that bad of an idea. You already start with 9 characters, each one specializing a little bit in one of the major stat groups, which on its own pretty cool. That's actually a neat way to implement each character. But locking the colors behind it, seriously? As well as 9 is barely a lot. You're basically getting each of the main characters of Sonic. And then a Motobug, I guess. And, like, at that point, why not just have more by default? You could definitely have the ones that are already in the game unlocked at the start. And then just have little bonus characters that you can find, or little secrets. But they hide them all behind these spray cans. These spray cans are hidden around each of the maps, and you have to find them, like, it's another mechanical issue, but you have to find enough to even unlock time trials, let alone colors, let alone other things. And while on paper, neat idea, having a little collectible, it's sort of like Garfield card, actually. That's the best way to compare it. Garfield card, which is probably not a good thing to be compared to. But in Garfield cart, the little collectibles you can get in that are mainly used towards carts, cosmetics, things to power up your cart, rather than just, actual customization. If you're just customizing the cart, customizing the character you can use, alongside the weight and lightness and things like that, whatever. But at the same time, you're also locking behind people's favorite characters, basically behind collecting shit. And no one wants to go around in each level collecting items. There's over 200 tracks in this fucking game. No way people are going to collect that many. Especially since there's 10 per page. There's about 4 pages in total. You're doing 40 grand pre. Why? As well as there are little companions that you can get as well. And those are neat unlockables. I actually like that idea as an unlockable. But why not have like one be unlocked in the first place to show, oh yeah, these exist too? Because I didn't even know those existed. It's hard to explain. I didn't even know those existed, and that would be a cool cosmetic thing to know right off the bat. It would give the player more incentive to collect these things because, oh yeah, you can get these little companions too. It's just not good. It just doesn't work, I think, the way they intended it to work. Because it forces all these things that you would expect to be defaults behind a wall. When you could have these default tools just be unlocked by default. Time attack, characters, things like that can be unlocked by default. But then you could have it so, extra modes like the prison mode, which is pretty neat, could actually be accessible through these unlock systems. And you could have it so the maps for that get unlocked too. That would be way easier and give players more incentive, to those who like that mode, to actually really get into it and find all these little secrets hidden around. I think I have one more major issue with the game. And that's the art style. Now, don't get me wrong. The levels are beautiful. I really like the art style for the levels specifically. They can look really good. They have a lot of range of colors. It really makes it feel like you've actually, been in their world. My issue is more so with the characters, actually. The characters have wildly inconsistent art style and designs. Some of them use their more modern designs, some of them use their more classic designs, some of them are more chibi, but while some of them are, unlimited by that. And it really feels like, because of all these inconsistencies, the game feels less cohesive as a result. Especially with characters, like if you compare Knuckles to Maria, they look so wildly different. They look like they could be in 2 different games and it would still make sense. Which is probably not a good thing if you want a more cohesive package for a game. As well as, these are some more minor nitpicks, but a lot of the voice lines really don't fit. It feels like there's just a lot of inconsistency in how things are designed. And for something that's 4 years in the making, it actually doesn't feel very polished outside of that tutorial sequence. The tutorial is so long and teaches you nothing. But it feels like it had the most effort put into it. It feels like there's an actual story behind it. The actual characters and everything like that feels nonsensical. It feels like there's no cohesion in their choices. There's characters missing that should definitely be there. Like, where's Gamma? Where's Omega? Where's Emerald? There's so many cool characters that could have been included, but Third-party characters aren't bad as well. I'm just saying that it feels like they have some obvious exclusions that really don't feel like they need to be there. This is about the end of my rant. I've been going on for 20 minutes, so that's how you know I feel passionately about this game. But I'm going to post this somewhere. I don't know. Bye. Also adding this in after the rant, but I'm going to include a clip here. This is a streamer having a mental breakdown. Yeah, you guys love mental breakdowns. Check it out.
There you go. What? Okay. Do I have to do it all over again? Do I have to do it all over again? Do I have to do it all over again?
And some last things to follow up on things I didn't mention in the original rant. This is recorded all in post. I'm currently editing in the video right now. But one thing I actually did forget to talk about was the way the items worked. Because the way they work is super bad. So the way it works is there's two types of item boxes that you can get outside of like trap item boxes. So there's the normal one or the golden one, which gives you better chances, as well as ring boxes. That's right. They don't just have an item. They have an entire box dedicated to them. So when you run into them, they don't give you an item. They give you a little like thing to show, oh yeah, you did this good, or you have this amount of luck, basically. And when you roll that, it just gives you a bunch of rings, which is useless. You can only have a max of 20. What's the point of them if you can't even go above 20? At least being able to stack up would make more sense, but you're basically getting like 50 to 100 rings per box, because there's a lot. They're only really useful if you don't already have rings, which you will never not struggle with because there's rings all around the map already. You're basically going to want an item box anytime you get one of these. They're completely pointless mechanically. Like, why would you ever need a ring box to get a jackpot and get like 100 rings when you're already going to be using your rings? You're basically going to be holding down the item button the entire race. There's no point in it. Anyway, I think that mechanic is dumb. I just needed to add that in because I forgot to actually talk about that later in the original rant.